My name is Seraphina, and at 28 years old, I discovered that my entire family had been systematically stealing from me for over a decade. When my mother looked me dead in the eyes during what I thought was a simple family dinner and said those words that would haunt most people forever, I did something unexpected. I smiled. Not because her words did not hurt, but because I finally understood that the family I had been desperately trying to please and protect had been my greatest enemy all along. What happened next would destroy their carefully constructed lies and expose a web of betrayal so deep that even I could not have imagined its scope. Hey everyone! Before we dive into this absolutely wild family drama that literally changed my entire world, I need to know where my amazing viewers are watching from tonight. Drop your location in the comments because this story gets so intense. I want to know who is brave enough to stick around until the shocking ending. Make sure you hit that like button if you are ready for some serious family justice, and definitely subscribe because trust me, after what my own blood relatives did to me, you will want to hear how karma served them, the coldest dish of revenge they never saw coming. The evening started like any other family gathering at my parents' house in suburban Denver. My younger brother Marcus had just graduated from law school, and my sister Delilah was celebrating her promotion to marketing director at a tech startup. I arrived with a bottle of expensive wine and genuine excitement to celebrate their achievements, completely oblivious that I was walking into what would become the most devastating night of my life. I had always been the responsible one, the family member everyone could count on. For the past 12 years since I turned 16 and started working part-time jobs, I had been contributing to what my parents called the Family Emergency Fund. Every month, without fail, I deposited $500 into a joint account that my father managed. When I got my first real job after college as a graphic designer, that contribution increased to $800 monthly. During good months when I picked up freelance projects, I sometimes added even more. My parents had convinced me that this money was our family's safety net, something that would help any of us during tough times. They painted beautiful pictures of how this fund might pay for medical emergencies, help someone through unemployment, or even contribute to future grandchildren's education. I bought into this vision completely because I loved my family and wanted to be the daughter who always had their backs. The conversation that night started innocently enough. Marcus mentioned his student loans, and Delilah talked about wanting to buy a house soon. I offered to help them both financially, suggesting we could use some of the family emergency fund that I had been contributing to for so many years. The silence that followed my suggestion was deafening, and the looks exchanged between my parents and siblings made my stomach drop. What family emergency fund? My mother asked with a tone I had never heard before, cold and almost mocking. I laughed nervously, assuming she was joking. The account I have been putting money into every month for 12 years. The one Dad set up for all of us to use when we needed help. That was when my father cleared his throat and delivered the first blow. Seraphina, that money was never meant to be a fund for everyone. You were helping us because we needed it. We used that money to pay for Marcus's private school tuition and his college expenses. We used it for Delilah's study abroad programs and her car. We used it to renovate our house and take family vacations. The room started spinning as the implications hit me. But you told me it was an emergency fund for all of us. You said if I ever needed help, the money would be there. My mother's response was swift and brutal. Well, you never needed help, did you? You always had your life together. Marcus and Delilah had dreams and goals that required investment. You were just working and living your little life. I calculated quickly in my head, my designer brain automatically organizing the numbers. 12 years of contributions starting at $300 monthly when I was in high school and working weekends increasing over time. The total was somewhere around $75,000, not including the extra contributions during good months. So, where is the money now? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Gone, my father said matter-of-factly. We spent it on the kids' futures. Marcus's law degree cost a fortune, and Delilah needed help establishing herself in her career. You should be proud that your contributions helped your siblings succeed. The betrayal was suffocating, but what happened next made it infinitely worse. I asked to see the account statements to understand exactly how my money had been spent. My father refused, claiming the records were family business that I did not need to see. When I pressed further, suggesting that I had a right to know where my own contributions went, my mother stood up from the table. "Your contributions," she said, her voice dripping with disdain. "Seraphina, you live in our house until you were 22. We fed you, clothed you, and put a roof over your head for over 2 decades. Every dollar you gave us was just paying us back for what we had already invested in you." I stared at her in disbelief. "But Marcus lived here until he was 24, and Delilah just moved out last year at 26. "That was different," my father interjected. "They were in school building their futures. You were just working retail and art jobs." The casual dismissal of my career, my education, my entire adult life felt like physical blows. I had graduated with honors from art school, built a successful freelance business, and had been supporting myself completely for 6 years. Yet somehow in their narrative, my contributions were just repayment for basic parental obligations, while my siblings' expenses were investments in their bright futures. But the worst revelation was still coming. As the argument escalated and voices rose, Marcus made a comment that stopped my heart. "At least now we do not have to pretend anymore that Seraphina's money was going into some special account. I always felt bad when she would talk about her future plans and how she was saving up for them." "You knew." I turned to face him, my voice breaking. "You knew the whole time that I thought I was saving money and you just let me keep believing it?" Delilah shifted uncomfortably in her chair. "We figured you would eventually realize that Mom and Dad needed the help more than you needed to save money. You were always so independent anyway." The systematic nature of their deception became clear. This was not a misunderstanding or a family miscommunication. This was a deliberate, coordinated lie that had been maintained for over a decade. They had watched me make financial decisions based on the belief that I had a substantial emergency fund. They had seen me turn down opportunities, avoid taking risks, and live more conservatively because I thought I was being financially responsible by contributing to our family's security. I had passed on a chance to study abroad because I did not want to interrupt my contributions to the family fund. I had chosen a cheaper apartment when I moved out because I wanted to maintain my monthly payments to my family. I had driven a 10-year-old car and bought clothes from thrift stores because I believed I was building something important for all of us together. Meanwhile, my siblings had lived freely, knowing that my sacrifice was funding their choices while I limited mine. The moments following their revelations felt surreal, as if I was watching someone else's life implode, rather than experiencing my own devastation. But something unexpected happened as I sat there absorbing the magnitude of their betrayal. Instead of crumbling into tears or exploding with rage, I felt a strange, cold clarity settle over me like armor. I looked around the dining room table at these people I had called family, really seeing them for the first time. My father, who had taught me about integrity and hard work, while systematically lying to my face for 12 years. My mother, who had preached about family loyalty while orchestrating my financial exploitation. My siblings, who had benefited from my sacrifice while treating it as their entitlement. "I need to use your bathroom," I said calmly, standing up from the table. My voice was steady, controlled, completely at odds with the chaos I felt inside. In the bathroom, I locked the door and pulled out my phone. My fingers moved quickly across the screen as I opened my banking app and began documenting everything I could remember about the supposed family fund. I created a new note and started typing furiously, recording every detail of tonight's conversation while it was fresh in my memory. Dates, amounts, exact quotes from my parents and siblings. Then I did something that would prove crucial later. I called my best friend Zara and left her a detailed voicemail explaining everything that had just happened. I spoke quietly, but clearly, creating a timestamp record of the conversation and my emotional state. I wanted someone trustworthy to have the full story immediately before anyone could try to gaslight me into believing I had misunderstood or overreacted. When I returned to the dining room, My family was engaged in animated conversation about Marcus's new job prospects, as if the last 30 minutes had not completely shattered my world. They barely looked up when I sat back down. So, I said, interrupting their discussion, I would like to understand the timeline better. When exactly did you decide that my contributions were payments rather than savings? My father sighed, clearly irritated that I was not letting the subject drop. Seraphina, does it really matter? What is done is done. You helped your family when we needed it, and now Marcus and Delilah are successful adults. That should make you proud. It matters to me, I replied evenly, because I made major life decisions based on believing I had money saved. I would like to know when you decided I did not deserve the truth about my own finances. My mother's patience snapped. Your own finances. Everything you had came from us first. We raised you, we supported you, we gave you every opportunity. The fact that you contributed some money back to this family was the least you could do after everything we invested in you. Did you use the same logic with Marcus and Delilah? I asked. Are their current salaries just repayment for what you invested in them? The silence that followed was telling. Marcus and Delilah exchanged uncomfortable glances while my parents visibly bristled at the question. That is completely different, my mother said, her voice rising. They needed help to reach their potential. You were always just doing your own thing, following your little artistic dreams. We guided them toward real careers. This was when I realized that their betrayal was not just financial. They had fundamentally different expectations and respect levels for me compared to my siblings. In their minds, I was somehow less deserving of honesty, support, and family investment. My career was dismissed as little artistic dreams, while Marcus's law degree and Delilah's marketing position were real careers worth family sacrifice. I spent the next hour asking careful questions, documenting their responses mentally, and watching as they became increasingly defensive and hostile. Each answer revealed more layers of their deception and disrespect. They had not just stolen my money, they had stolen my agency to make informed decisions about my own life. The final straw came when I asked if they had any documentation of how the money was spent, suggesting that I would like to understand where my contributions went. My father's response was swift and cruel. You do not get to audit this family's decisions, Seraphina. We do not owe you an accounting of anything. But it was my money, I said simply. That was when my mother delivered the line that would echo in my head for weeks. We wish you were never born, if this is how ungrateful you are going to be about everything we have done for you. The words hit like a physical blow, but something strange happened. Instead of destroying me, they liberated me. In that moment, I understood that these people did not see me as family. They saw me as a resource to be exploited and then discarded when I stopped being useful. The unconditional love I thought we shared was entirely one-sided. I stood up slowly, my chair scraping against the hardwood floor. Every eye in the room was on me, waiting to see if I would break down, apologize, or beg for their forgiveness and acceptance. Instead, I smiled. Not a happy smile, but the smile of someone who finally understands the game being played and is ready to play it better. The smile of someone who has just realized that the people who hurt her most have also given her the greatest gift, complete freedom from obligation to protect them. Thank you, I said quietly, for finally being honest about how you really feel. I walked to the front closet, where I had hung my coat, moving with deliberate calm, while my family sat frozen at the table. As I put on my jacket, I could hear urgent whispers behind me, but I did not turn around. Seraphina, wait, my father called as I reached for the door handle. You are overreacting. We can talk about this. I paused with my hand on the door and looked back at them one final time. No, we really cannot. But thank you for the education. It was expensive, but apparently that is what family is for. I walked out of that house knowing I would never return as the same person. The daughter who had spent 12 years trying to earn their love and approval was gone. What remained was a woman with nothing left to lose and a lot of injustice to address. The drive home was a blur of planning and calculation. I was not thinking about revenge yet, but about documentation, evidence, and truth. If my family wanted to play games with my money and my heart, they were about to discover that I had learned a few things about strategy and persistence from 12 years in the creative industry. By the time I reached my apartment, I had made several decisions that would change everything. I was going to find out exactly what happened to my money. I was going to document every lie they had told me, and I was going to make sure that the truth came to light in a way that mattered. They had taught me that family was about loyalty, sacrifice, and protecting each other. I was about to teach them what happens when that family turns out to be built on lies. The next morning, I woke up with the kind of clarity that only comes after a life-changing revelation. I made coffee and sat at my kitchen table with my laptop, determined to approach the situation like the professional project it had become. If my family wanted to treat me like a business transaction rather than a daughter, I would respond accordingly. My first call was to Zara, who had listened to my voicemail in shock and was ready to help however possible. Zara worked in financial planning and had always been impressed by my disciplined saving habits. When I explained that my supposed emergency fund had never actually existed, she was furious on my behalf. "Sarah, this is not just family drama," she said, using my nickname. "This sounds like financial fraud. You gave them money under false pretenses, believing you were making deposits into an account that would benefit you. They knowingly accepted those funds while lying about their intended use." Her professional perspective helped me understand that this was not just about hurt feelings or family dysfunction. This was about documenting financial deception that had real legal implications. She offered to help me reconstruct my financial history and calculate the exact amount of money involved. We spent the entire day going through my old bank statements, tax records, and the meticulous notes I had kept about my contributions. The picture that emerged was even worse than I had initially calculated. Over 12 years, I had contributed a total of $87,000 to what I believed was a family emergency fund. During the same period, I had limited my own spending and turned down opportunities based on the belief that I had substantial savings. But Zara discovered something else while reviewing my records. During several periods when I had mentioned dipping into the family fund for my own emergencies, my parents had discouraged me from accessing the money. They had suggested I handle the situations differently, find alternative solutions, or wait until the problems resolved themselves. Now I understood why the money was already gone. "Sarah, this is systematic exploitation," Zara said as we finished our calculations. "They did not just lie to you about where your money was going. They actively prevented you from accessing it when you needed it most." I remembered specific instances with painful clarity. When my car needed major repairs 3 years ago, I had mentioned using some of the family fund money. My mother had suggested I take out a small loan instead, saying the family account was tied up in investments at the moment. When I wanted to take a professional development course that would have advanced my career, my father had discouraged me from using family funds for non-essential expenses. Meanwhile, Marcus had been driving a car my parents purchased for him, and Delilah had taken 2 expensive vacations funded by what I now knew was my money. My second important call was to my cousin Riley, my father's nephew, who worked as a private investigator. Riley had always been the black sheep of the extended family, someone who asked uncomfortable questions and refused to participate in family politics. When I explained the situation, his response was immediate and supportive. "I always wondered how your parents could afford Marcus's private school and law school on their salaries," Riley said. "And I remember thinking it was weird how they never seemed stressed about money, despite having 3 kids and a mortgage." Riley offered to help me investigate my parents' financial situation more thoroughly. He had professional resources for background checks and public record searches that could reveal how they had actually spent the money. More importantly, he had maintained relationships with other extended family members who might have information about my parents' financial history. Within 48 hours, Riley had uncovered disturbing information. My parents had taken out a home equity loan 6 years ago, around the time Marcus started law school. They had also opened several credit cards during the period when my contributions were highest. Rather than using my money responsibly, they appeared to have been living beyond their means while using my contributions to service debt and fund lifestyle expenses. But the most shocking discovery came from my Aunt Patricia, my mother's sister, who Riley contacted as part of his investigation. Patricia revealed that my parents had been telling extended family members that I was financially irresponsible and constantly asking them for money. They had positioned themselves as long-suffering parents who were supporting their struggling adult daughter. Your mother told me just last month that you were still living paycheck to paycheck and that they were worried about your financial future. Patricia told me during a phone call that left me speechless. She said they were trying to teach you responsibility by not enabling your spending habits. The layers of deception were staggering. Not only had my parents stolen my money and lied to me about it, but they had also been destroying my reputation with extended family members. They had painted me as the family financial burden while secretly using my contributions to fund their lifestyle and my siblings' opportunities. This revelation changed my approach entirely. I was no longer dealing with a private family matter that could be resolved through honest conversation. I was dealing with people who had systematically defrauded me while damaging my reputation and relationships with other family members. I decided it was time to involve my siblings more directly. I called Marcus first, hoping that as a newly graduated lawyer, he might understand the legal implications of what our parents had done and be willing to help address the situation. The conversation was devastating. Marcus not only refused to acknowledge any wrongdoing, but actually defended our parents' actions. They invested in our futures, Sarah. My law degree will benefit this entire family for generations. You should be proud that your contributions made that possible. When I pointed out that I had been deceived about the nature of my contributions, he dismissed my concerns. You are being dramatic. Family help each other out. Just because you did not understand the arrangement does not mean anyone did anything wrong. My call with Delilah was even worse. She accused me of trying to destroy the family over money and suggested that my reaction proved I had never really cared about anyone but myself. You are acting like Mom and Dad committed some kind of crime, she said. All they did was use your help to give us opportunities. Isn't not that what family is supposed to do? Their responses confirmed what I had begun to suspect. This was not just my parents' deception. My siblings had been willing participants who felt entitled to the benefits of my sacrifice while dismissing my right to honesty and informed consent. That evening, I made a decision that would change everything. I was going to expose the truth not just to them, but to everyone who mattered. If they wanted to paint me as the ungrateful daughter who did not understand family sacrifice, I would show the world exactly what kind of family they really were. But I was going to be smart about it. I was going to gather irrefutable evidence, document every lie they had told, and present the truth in a way that would be impossible to dismiss or explain away. They had taught me about patience, persistence, and playing the long game. I was about to give them a masterclass in their own lessons. The war was officially declared, even if they did not know it yet. 3 weeks after that devastating dinner, I had transformed from a heartbroken daughter into a strategic operative with one mission: exposing the truth in the most comprehensive way possible. The evidence Riley and I had gathered was damning, but I needed the perfect moment and method to reveal everything. The opportunity came when my parents announced they were throwing a surprise birthday party for Marcus to celebrate his law school graduation and his new job at a prestigious firm. They invited extended family friends, and Marcus's colleagues. It was going to be a celebration of their successful son and their excellent parenting. I RSVP'd enthusiastically, offering to help with preparations. My sudden cooperative attitude surprised them, but they were so relieved that I seemed to be getting over my dramatic reaction that they welcomed my involvement. What they did not know was that I had been busy creating a presentation that would serve as my gift to Marcus and my final statement to our family. I spent days crafting a PowerPoint presentation titled "The True Cost of Success, a Family Investment Analysis." It looked professional and innocent, like something you might see at a corporate meeting. I designed it to appear celebratory at first glance, with photos of Marcus throughout his academic journey and quotes about family support and achievement. But as the slides progressed, the presentation revealed the financial reality behind Marcus's success. I had documented every contribution I made to the family fund, cross-referenced with Marcus's school expenses, and created a clear timeline showing how my money had directly funded his opportunities. The presentation included bank statements, emails, where my parents had solicited my contributions, and documentation of how they had discouraged me from accessing the fund when I needed help. I had screenshots of social media posts where my parents bragged about Marcus's achievements without mentioning the source of their financial ability to support him. Most devastatingly, I included the conversation Patricia had shared about how my parents had been portraying me to extended family as financially irresponsible while secretly using my money. But the real masterpiece was the final section, a detailed breakdown of what I could have achieved with the $87,000 they had taken from me. I showed how that money could have funded my own master's degree, allowed me to start my design business years earlier, or provided the down payment on a house. I illustrated the compound effect of the opportunities I had missed because I believed I was being financially responsible by limiting my spending. The night of the party, I arrived early to help set up just as I had promised. I volunteered to handle the audio-visual equipment, claiming I wanted to make a special presentation to honor Marcus. My parents were delighted, thinking I was finally showing proper family spirit. As guests gathered in the backyard, I watched my family work the crowd. My parents played their roles perfectly, the proud, sacrificing mother and father who had given everything to help their children succeed. Marcus graciously accepted congratulations on his achievements, while Delilah charmed everyone with stories about our close-knit family. When it came time for speeches, my father spoke first about the importance of family support and how proud he was of Marcus's dedication. My mother followed with a tearful speech about the sacrifices parents make and how wonderful it feels to see their investments in their children pay off. Then it was my turn. I also prepared something special to honor Marcus, I said, moving toward the projector I had set up. I think it is important that everyone understands the true story behind his success and the family values that made it possible. The first few slides got appreciative murmurs from the crowd. Photos of young Marcus, quotes about sibling support, references to our family's commitment to education. My parents smiled proudly, thinking I was playing my expected role as the supportive big sister. Then slide 7 appeared. The financial foundation understanding the investment. The crowd grew quiet as numbers appeared on the screen. Monthly contributions, total amounts, and a clear timeline showing the correlation between my financial contributions and Marcus's opportunities. I narrated each slide calmly, professionally, as if I were giving a business presentation. As you can see, I said, clicking to the next slide, Marcus's success was made possible through systematic family contributions totaling $87,000 over 12 years. This represents a significant family investment in his future. By slide 10, which detailed how I had been told I was contributing to a family emergency fund, the backyard had gone completely silent. My parents' faces had gone white, and Marcus looked like he wanted to disappear. But I was just getting started. Slide 15 showed the emails and text messages where my parents had discouraged me from accessing the fund for my own needs. Slide 20 displayed the timeline of how they had prevented me from making career investments while simultaneously funding Marcus's opportunities. The coup de grace came with slide 25 audio recordings from my conversation with Patricia and other family members played through the sound system I was operating. Everyone heard my mother's voice describing me as financially irresponsible while she was actually using my money to fund family expenses. The final slides showed my missed opportunities and the compound effect of my sacrificed potential. I had created visual representations of the career advancement I could have achieved, the education I could have pursued, and the financial security I could have built if I had been allowed to make informed decisions about my own money. As the presentation ended, the backyard was completely silent, except for the sound of the projector fan. 60 people, family members, family friends, Marcus's colleagues, and law school classmates had just witnessed the most thorough financial expose any of them had ever seen. My father was the first to speak, his voice shaky with rage. Seraphina, how dare you embarrass this family with your lies and manipulation? But before he could continue, my Aunt Patricia stepped forward. Actually, Robert, I think we just heard the truth for the first time. I remember exactly the conversation you recorded, Linda. You told me Seraphina was constantly asking for money when she was actually giving you money. Other family members began speaking up, sharing their own memories of conversations where my parents had misrepresented my financial situation. Marcus's law school friends looked uncomfortable, clearly wondering if their classmate's success story was built on family exploitation. Marcus himself stood frozen, realizing that his professional network had just learned that his expensive education was funded through what appeared to be systematic deception of his sister. But the most satisfying moment came when my mother tried to salvage the situation by claiming that I was lying about the amount of money involved. I simply pulled out my phone and called my bank's customer service line, putting it on speaker. I would like to confirm the total of wire transfers and deposits I made to account number. I read off the account number for the family fund that my father had set up years earlier. The customer service representative confirmed the total amount and read back several of the largest transactions, including dates and reference numbers. Every word was audible to the entire party through the sound system I controlled. When I hung up the phone, my mother's last defense crumbled. There was no longer any way to claim that I was exaggerating or lying about the financial facts. That was when I delivered my final statement. I spent 12 years believing that family meant sacrifice, loyalty, and mutual support. Tonight, I want everyone to understand what our family's version of those values actually looks like. Marcus, congratulations on your success. I hope it was worth the price we all paid for it. I packed up my presentation materials while chaos erupted around me. Some family members were demanding explanations from my parents, others were comforting my clearly devastated siblings, and several guests were quietly leaving through the side gate. As I walked toward the exit carrying my laptop and projector, my father grabbed my arm. "You have destroyed this family," he hissed. I looked him directly in the eyes and smiled the same calm smile I had given them 3 weeks earlier. "No, Dad. I just finally told the truth about what you built." The 48 hours following Marcus's party were unlike anything I had ever experienced. My phone rang constantly with calls from family members, family friends, and even some of Marcus's colleagues who had witnessed the presentation. The reactions ranged from supportive to hostile, but one thing was clear: no one could ignore what had happened. My Uncle David, my father's brother, called me the morning after the party. "Seraphina, I owe you an apology. Your father has been telling us for years that you were irresponsible with money and that they were constantly bailing you out. We had no idea you were actually supporting them." Similar calls came from other relatives who had been given false information about my financial situation. My cousin Jennifer told me she had been judging me for years, thinking I was a burden on my parents. My grandmother, my mother's mother, called in tears after hearing about the situation from Patricia. "I gave your parents $5,000 last Christmas because your mother said you needed help with medical bills," she said, her voice shaking with anger. "Now I find out you were actually giving them money while they were lying about your situation to get more money from me." The revelation that my parents had been soliciting financial help from extended family members while claiming it was for me added another layer to their deception. They had not only stolen my money, but had also been using my name to commit what amounted to fraud against other family members. But the calls from supportive family members were balanced by increasingly desperate and hostile contact from my immediate family. Marcus called me 6 times on Saturday morning, leaving progressively angrier voicemails demanding that I fix this situation and explain to his colleagues that I had misrepresented the facts. "You have ruined my professional reputation before I even start my career," he said in his final voicemail. "My colleagues think my success is based on fraud. You need to send a retraction email to everyone who was at the party." Delilah's approach was different but equally predictable. She showed up at my apartment Saturday evening, tears streaming down her face, begging me to help repair the family relationships I had destroyed. "Sarah, please, you have to understand how this looks," she pleaded through my apartment door when I refused to let her in. "People think Mom and Dad are criminals. They think Marcus and I are entitled brats. This is not what you wanted, is it?" I spoke to her through the closed door, my voice calm and steady. What I wanted was honesty. What I wanted was for my family to treat me with the same respect and consideration they expected from me. What I wanted was to make informed decisions about my own money and my own life. "But we can fix this," she insisted. "We can all sit down together and work out a payment plan. Mom and Dad can pay you back over time, and we can all move forward as a family." The offer of repayment might have been tempting if it had come before their deception was exposed, but now it felt like just another manipulation. They were not offering to pay me back because they recognized they had wronged me. They were offering to pay me back because they wanted to control the narrative and minimize the social consequences of their actions. "Delilah," I said through the door, "if they were planning to pay me back, they would have told me the truth from the beginning. They would have asked for a loan instead of lying about an emergency fund. They would have included me in decisions about how my money was spent. This offer is not about making things right. It is about damage control." The most telling reaction came from my parents themselves. Rather than calling me directly to apologize or attempt to make amends, they launched a campaign to discredit my presentation and minimize the impact of their exposed deception. My father called several family members to claim that I had manipulated the bank records and that the amounts I reported were grossly exaggerated. When Patricia challenged him with specific details from my presentation, he accused me of recording conversations without consent and threatened legal action. My mother took a different approach, calling relatives to paint me as mentally unstable and vindictive. She suggested that I had been planning this attack for months and that my entire presentation was motivated by jealousy over Marcus's success. But their attempts at damage control only made things worse. Every family member they contacted had witnessed the presentation firsthand and had heard the bank confirmation of my financial contributions. Their continued lying in the face of documented evidence only reinforced how deeply dishonest they had been all along. The professional consequences for Marcus became apparent quickly. Two of his law school classmates who had been at the party worked at the firm where he was supposed to start his new job. By Monday morning, word had spread through the legal community about the circumstances surrounding his education funding. While no one suggested that Marcus had done anything legally wrong, the story raised questions about his character and judgment. Several potential clients who had been considering hiring the firm specifically to work with Marcus withdrew their interest after hearing about the family drama. Marcus blamed me entirely for these professional consequences, sending me a series of text messages that revealed his true character more clearly than anything that had happened before. "I hope you are happy that you have destroyed my career before it started," read one message. "You were always jealous that Mom and Dad supported my success instead of your little art projects. This is just your pathetic attempt to drag me down to your level." Reading those texts was actually liberating. They confirmed that Marcus felt entitled to my sacrifice and viewed my career and aspirations as inherently less valuable than his own. Any guilt I might have felt about the professional consequences he was facing evaporated completely. The ripple effects continued throughout the week. Delilah's company had several employees who were friends with people at the party, and word spread through her professional network as well. While her situation was less severe than Marcus's, she found herself having uncomfortable conversations about family ethics and personal integrity. My parents' social circle was equally affected. Several family friends who had been at the party began questioning other stories my parents had told over the years. If they had been lying about my financial situation, what else had they been dishonest about? The most satisfying consequence was entirely unexpected. My parents had been active members of their church for over 20 years, serving on committees and organizing charity events. When word of their financial deception reached their church community, they were quietly asked to step down from their leadership roles, pending a period of reflection and reconciliation. The church's response was particularly meaningful because my parents had always positioned themselves as moral leaders in their religious community. They had taught Sunday school classes about honesty and integrity while systematically lying to their own daughter and extended family. By the end of the week, my parents had lost their leadership positions at church, their credibility with extended family, and their comfortable narrative about being sacrificing parents who had successfully raised accomplished children. Marcus was facing professional challenges that would follow him throughout his early career, and Delilah was dealing with social embarrassment that affected both her personal and professional relationships. But most importantly, everyone who mattered now knew the truth about who had really sacrificed for whom in our family. 6 months have passed since that unforgettable birthday party presentation, and my life has transformed in ways I never could have anticipated. The immediate aftermath was painful and chaotic, but what emerged from the destruction of my old family dynamic has been far more valuable than anything I lost. The first major change was financial. While my parents never formally apologized or acknowledged their wrongdoing, they did quietly transfer $43,000 to my personal account 6 weeks after the party. It was exactly half of what they had taken from me, which I interpreted as their attempt to make partial restitution while maintaining plausible deniability about the full extent of their debt. I accepted the money without comment or acknowledgement. I viewed it as a partial recovery of stolen funds rather than a gesture of reconciliation. The remaining $44,000 represents a debt they will carry for the rest of their lives, whether they acknowledge it or not. With the recovered funds, and the money I had been setting aside monthly for their non-existent family fund, I was finally able to make investments in my own future that I had been postponing for years. I enrolled in a master's program in digital design that will significantly advance my career prospects. I also used part of the money to launch my own design consultancy, something I had been planning but could never afford to do properly. The professional growth has been remarkable. Without the monthly financial drain of supporting my family's lives, I have been able to take creative risks and pursue higher-paying clients. My business is thriving, and I recently signed a contract with a major tech company that will provide steady income for the next 2 years. But the personal growth has been even more significant. Removing myself from my family's toxic dynamic has allowed me to form healthier relationships and develop a stronger sense of self-worth. I no longer question my value or feel obligated to prove myself through financial sacrifice. My relationship with extended family members has actually improved dramatically. Aunts, uncles, and cousins who had been given false information about my character and financial situation have reached out to rebuild connections based on truth rather than lies. My grandmother has become one of my strongest supporters, regularly checking in on my business progress and celebrating my achievements. The most surprising development has been my growing relationship with Riley, the cousin who helped me investigate my parents' deception. Our collaboration during the crisis revealed how much we have in common, and we have become close friends and occasional business partners. Riley's investigative skills and my design expertise have proven to be a powerful combination for certain client projects. As for my immediate family, the relationships have settled into a state of polite estrangement that works better for everyone involved. Marcus eventually found stable employment, though not at the prestigious firm he had originally planned to join. The family drama followed him through the legal community for several months, but he has managed to rebuild his professional reputation through competent work and ethical behavior. Delilah has actually benefited from the crisis in some ways. Being forced to examine her own entitlement and assumptions about family dynamics has made her more self-aware and responsible. She recently reached out to me with what seemed like a genuine apology, acknowledging that she had been wrong to dismiss my concerns and minimize my contributions to the family. My parents have maintained their position that I overreacted and damaged the family unnecessarily. They have never apologized or acknowledged that their deception was wrong. However, their social standing in their community has been permanently affected, and they have been much more careful about their financial behavior since the truth came to light. The most important lesson I learned through this experience is that family loyalty should never be unconditional. True family relationships are built on mutual respect, honesty, and genuine care for each other's well-being. What I thought was family loyalty was actually enablement of their exploitation and disrespect. I have built what I now consider my chosen family friends like Zara, who supported me through the crisis, relatives like Riley and Patricia, who stood up for truth and justice, and new relationships with people who value honesty and integrity. These relationships are based on who I actually am rather than what I can provide financially. The experience has also taught me to trust my instincts when something feels wrong. For years, I had occasional doubts about the family fund arrangement, but I dismissed those concerns because I wanted to believe in my family's integrity. Now I understand that my intuition was correct and I wish I had investigated sooner. Looking back, I do not regret exposing the truth, even though it caused significant disruption and pain. Living a lie might have been more comfortable in the short term, but it was slowly destroying my financial future and my sense of self-worth. The truth was painful but ultimately liberating. The most satisfying aspect of the entire situation is that justice was served through their own actions rather than through my revenge. I simply revealed the truth about what they had done, and the natural consequences of their behavior took care of the rest. Their reputation damage, social embarrassment, and professional consequences were the direct result of their choices, not my vindictiveness. Today, I am financially stable, professionally successful, and surrounded by people who value me for who I am, rather than what I can provide. My relationship with money is healthier because I make decisions based on accurate information about my financial situation. My relationships are stronger because they are built on honesty and mutual respect. Sometimes people ask me if I miss my family or regret the way things ended. The answer is complicated. I miss the family I thought I had, but that family never actually existed. I do not miss the stress of constantly trying to prove my worth through financial sacrifice. I do not miss the confusion of making life decisions based on false information about my financial security. What I have now is something I never had before: peace of mind, authentic relationships, and the freedom to build the life I actually want rather than the life someone else expects me to live. The woman who walked into that family dinner 6 months ago believed that love meant sacrifice and that family meant accepting whatever treatment you received. The woman I am today understands that love should be mutual and that family should be chosen based on behavior, not biology. Have you ever discovered that people you trusted completely had been lying to you for years? How did you handle learning that your family's love came with conditions you never knew existed? I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments about family loyalty, financial boundaries, and standing up for yourself when the people closest to you are the ones hurting you most. If this story resonated with you, or if you have been through something similar, please hit that like button and subscribe to this channel. Share this video with anyone who might need to hear that they deserve honesty and respect from their family members. Your support means everything to me as I continue to share these real-life lessons about justice, growth, and finding your chosen family. Thank you for watching my journey from family exploitation to personal empowerment. Remember that you deserve relationships built on truth, respect, and genuine care. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do for yourself is to stop accepting treatment that diminishes your worth. Until next time, keep standing up for yourselves and choosing people who choose you back.